Hi, I'm Jayson Fong, automotive photographer and artist, and these are my cars. All right. Yeah, so I originally grew up in Australia. I moved over to the UK 10 years ago, actually, in May this month. It's been a bit of a journey, but yeah, I've been a photographer for, I'd say, 10 years now, and along that time, an artist as well. So my journey started with me wanting to be a car designer, like a lot of young teenage boys. But I ended up in photography because by the end of my course, I bought my first car, which was a Subaru. Learned to drive in that and was out with friends taking photos, and then started taking photos for the clubs, which went to magazines. And then I finished uni about that point. I'd done exchange and met my partner who's British. And I thought, you know what, I might just bite the bullet now while I've got no responsibilities and move to the UK and give it a shot. It's been 10 years and haven't been kicked out of the country yet, so it's a pretty good start, I think. What got me into cars? Probably my dad, I'd say. My dad was always into his cars, always into BMWs, and I think he's a bit disappointed that I haven't got one yet. But yeah, my first car was a Subaru, non-turbo Impreza Hawkeye, and then that I eventually changed to a white GC8 WRX back in Australia. And I actually had that car for must be about 4 years. 2.5 of those years was me living here, so that car was over in Australia. And I think my dad used that more than me, and kind of inspired me to kind of get into it and learn about them. And he always had magazines lying around, and I remember always going through them as a kid and just loving the pictures in those magazines. And so kind of having the opportunity now to have a career that's kind of, I'm hoping, does the same for another generation of people, you know, it really makes me quite happy. Favorite car that my dad had, the E60 M5. So that had the big V10 in it. But before that, he actually had a E30, which was a 325 IS, or otherwise 325i Sport in Europe. And that car he used to always talk about, and every time we'd be at the lights, people would be going, oh, you know, is the car for sale? And he'd always be like, no. Yeah, I'm not surprised, but eventually it did get nicked, which is a real shame, but he never ever stops reminding me about how much he really loved that car. Every time we talk about classic cars, he always brings it up, and I didn't realize how kind of rare they were at the time. Right side. I started a lot in motorsport when I moved over from Australia. And I've started actually venturing more back towards commercial photography, so more press stuff. So I work a lot with Toyota and Toyota Europe, doing a lot of their pre-production cars. So I was really lucky to get the opportunity to work on the GR Yaris when it was a prototype. And it was really eye-opening and really exciting because it seemed like a new rebirth for the brand, and with the GR racing and all that kind of stuff. I actually had my roots in Car Throttle. So 10 years ago when I moved over, I sent a cold email to like a very generic email at Car Throttle. It was like info@Car Throttle. And I didn't expect a reply, but I basically said, look, I'm an Australian photographer. I'm thinking of moving to the UK in like 6 months. Would you be up for having me along for a bit of the ride to give photography a go? And I couldn't believe it, but yeah, I got a reply back. When I did move over here, I got on a shoot. I think it was, funnily enough, with Toyota, but I wasn't a photographer, I was actually a driver. And that whole day, I was in an original AE86, which was a really exciting opportunity, really. Coming over from Australia, I didn't think I'd be straight into cars, but it was straight in. And yeah, did a whole bunch of shoots back then with Car Throttle, some exciting ones. I think the Tesla Model S was new at the time, and we did a big trip from London to Paris on one charge. Well, we tried to get there on one charge. I think we did. But yeah, my roots are in Car Throttle. I try to keep the art fresh. Every year I do a little challenge for Le Mans. Started after I went to photograph it for the first time in 2014, and it was the first big event that I'd ever covered as a photographer. And it really inspired me, just from all the people that were there and all the teams that were racing. It was just, the energy was just incredible. And I made a promise to myself that I'd go back every year to photograph it if I could from then on. The next year, I couldn't make it for some reason, so I had to break the promise, but I thought I'd get involved somehow by staying awake to watch the race. And I thought, maybe I can do something while watching the race, and that ended up being my drawings. The challenge is 24 for LM24, and that involves me staying up for 24 hours. Each hour of the race, I do an artwork that depicts a moment from that hour. So by the end, it's 24 hours of highlights basically, and it's quite fun to watch the highlights reel that the FIA put out and look at the drawings, and actually they kind of match up, which is really fun. But it allows me to watch the race as well, and also, yeah, just allow me to keep doing the art really. Portion of the proceeds that come from those artworks being sold, they go to a chosen charity every year. Do I have a favorite of these cars? I would say my heart will always be with a GC8 Subaru, just because that's the kind of car I grew up learning to drive on. I still remember really fondly, kind of late in the evenings, I'd disappear from home. Parents would be like, "Oh, where are you going?" I'd be like, "I'm just going for a drive," which I was, to be honest, but they didn't know I was going out into the national parks in Australia late at night, and it's completely quiet. And that's where I kind of learnt a lot of my driving skill, and learnt to heel and toe in a GC8. So yeah, when I kind of moved over here, and I didn't really have any fun cars really for a long time. I was really concentrating on work, and at the time I was thinking, there's nothing else I can think of worse than spending money on cars and blowing money on cars. And then I ended up buying an MX5, which is this one, because that was always a dream to kind of have something, a little roadster. And it was actually because of an experience that I had in an MGB race car at Spa. So after that experience, I said, you know what, I've got to have a little roadster, red, that is just rear-wheel drive and really simple to maintain, and that works, but gives a bit of a feeling of kind of analog driving. And so I ended up with this, and then kind of the dominoes kind of just fell, and I ended up going a bit overboard maybe by getting the other two Subarus and the Lotus as well. But yeah, my heart definitely sits with the Subaru for sure. Why two? Yeah, I asked myself the same question. Main reason is I have a long history with Subaru because I learned to drive on them. But one really fond memory I have from way back, I think I was about 9 or 10, my dad came back with a radio-controlled car. It was quite a big one, probably 1/24 scale. I think it was a Tamiya model, but it was a 1997 Subaru World Rally car. And yeah, the blue and gold kind of always had me from that, and obviously watching all the rally at the time and the magazines. And yeah, there was just something about Subaru that I really liked. And yeah, together with that, that's why I bought it as my first car, because I just wanted that affiliation, and yeah, here I am. Got my blue and gold. So the MX5 was stock when I got it. Yeah, I never thought I'd be the type of person who spends more money on the car than the car is worth, but yeah, I ended up doing that accidentally in a way. But I bought the car kind of just to have a bit of a fun summer car basically. But I got in it and drove it around, and I thought, actually, I think this chassis is probably quite a good foundation for a track car, and I always envisioned it maybe potentially becoming a track car as well. And then so I put a set of coilovers on it, and then exhaust, just kind of the easy things, and then took it on its first track day, which was at the Nürburgring. So yeah, I had an amazing experience there, and it was then that I definitely knew that the chassis was really capable. So kind of step by step, got carried away really. So I feel like it's finally there. So why Lotus Exige? The Lotus was actually the result of basically a childhood dream. I spent a lot of time, like a lot of us, on Gran Turismo, and I used to do the races, but one thing I really did all the time was I used to do my own time trials, and I like to use the Lotus Elise 111R as always like the base for a lap around any track, and then kind of I could judge how good cars were based off that base lap. And so I've always wanted a yellow 111R, and I was looking around for ages. It took me about 6 months, and then a Lotus Exige came up that was yellow. This is a non-supercharged version, so it's actually the identical engine to the 111R, and I thought, I think I'll go for it. And it just seemed like a really logical step up from the MX5, because I do so many track days. I really wanted something that really pushed me as a driver, so I felt like the MX5 did that really well, but it was very forgiving as a car, and at the time I was also starting to get into my racing as well. So I learned a lot in the MX5, but then I kind of said, well, I want to push myself a little bit more and have something a bit more raw and engaging, And that's why I decided on the Exige, because it just seemed like a childhood dream, and yeah, it just seemed like something that could push me. I probably drive the version 6 CI probably the most. I almost daily that where I can. I think there's just something about it. It's really practical and it's got really good performance. But I also share those duties together with the MX5 just because it's on a B road, it's just fantastic. And there's something about having a convertible with the roof down. Every mundane journey becomes really, really exciting. Can't not have fun in an MX5. Miata is always the answer. The soundtrack to this car is fantastic, so yeah, definitely share between the two. Do I plan to change any of the cars? I think, well, what I've said to my partner is kind of these are the base foundations. So if any other cars come, those will come and go, but I feel like these will always stay with me because they've all got a really sentimental reason why they're there. I've got them, so yeah, if I can, I will hold on to them. Dream cars, I think, I mean, money no object, McLaren F1, hands down, favorite car. But in terms of attainable dream cars, I think I'm really, really happy, to be honest, with what I've got. I feel really, really lucky to have had the opportunity to own them. And they all give a really different experience. And I think that's really important to having a collection that you use, is each car kind of does something a little bit different and gives you a little, yeah, just different feeling. Favorite experience with the cars? Yeah, it was probably about a year or two ago. My partner and I did quite a lot of road trips in the cars because they're all kind of newish, and I think we'd just come out of COVID as well. So there was definitely a feeling of let's just get out in there and do something. And so our first big road trip was in the MX5. We took it to the Alps in winter and we went skiing. And it was great driving past Range Rovers who had come up to the Alps but on summer tyres, and we were with the roof down on winter tyres going, see you later. So that was really, really memorable. We had a great trip with a really big group of friends out there as well. And then so we did that and then did a big trip back up to the UK. We also did a trip to Spain in this car a year later. So I think it was about 3,000-mile journey in the end, but we drove from the UK all the way through France, down through the Pyrenees and over to Spain. And we ended up in a bit of an inland desert called Bardenas. And it's this really arid and dry place it feels a bit like Death Valley in the United States, but in Europe. And there's a 30-kilometer ring road that goes around this entire place. And I think it's a military base as well. And it's all gravel. And we had no spare tire and we were on just normal road tires. And we just trundled around there it must have been about 5 miles per hour. And it took ages to get around, but that was super memorable. And then we continued further south, almost towards Barcelona, and then did a big loop back up. So that was really memorable. And then the year after, we actually took the Subaru. So we loaded, I had my sister and her partner were over from Australia, and my partner Zoe. We loaded the car full to the brim with bags and ourselves. And yeah, we drove all the way down to the Alps, did another ski trip. And it was great kind of being amongst all the cars down there because you know, you get all the people in their Lamborghini Uruses and all the expensive 4x4s, and I went, you know what, actually, a 24-year-old Subaru does the job pretty well. What's next for Jayson Fong? Didn't really think this one through. I suppose I started out in motorsport, but I feel like my kind of experiences that I've had there have been amazing, but I kind of want to move on to different things. So I'm heading more towards the commercial side of photography with manufacturers at the moment. On the art side of things, I'm working on more larger scale artworks, more paintings and ink artworks. And together with that, I actually recently started a new collaboration with my partner Zoe, who's a really talented textiles designer. So we're working on a range of men and women's accessories at the moment, kind of like ties and scarves, but kind of using my ink artworks as a base. Zoe is then using that as a theme to create a textile artwork, which then gets created into these products. So yeah, we're really looking forward to launching that as soon as possible, really. So yeah, that's been really exciting. In terms of road trips, yeah, we've got quite a few because after the Spain and the Alps trip, we're looking to head a bit further north, maybe up to Iceland, or maybe take the ferry over there and kind of explore, probably with the MX5, I think, because again, talking about experiences, there's just something about experiencing a new place with the roof down. You can find me and my work a lot on Instagram. So my handle is Jayson.Fong, and my website as well. So yeah. Thought I'd give you guys a bit of a closer look at the cars that I've got. This is a 2007 NC MX5. So yeah, it did start stock. Everything was stock on it. It was a really nice condition one, and then I went and ruined it. Well, that's what Zoe says to me all the time. But yeah, it's kind of had basic track day mods on. So coilovers, upgraded pads, but stock discs, front lip more for looks than anything else. But the main thing is actually under the hood. So it's running BBR's Super 225 package, which is upgraded cams. So they're a bit more aggressive, new manifold as well. And then it's running ITBs as well. So that's the main thing. I remember test driving their car at the time at their base, and I thought the sound of ITBs is just, yeah, it's just to die for. So I had to go with that. And it also kind of gave it a really good pump in power as well. So I think for the standard car, it's wanting power, and the chassis can take it as well. So putting the ITBs on and that package, bringing it up to 225 horsepower NA is really special. It's fantastic on the road. So yeah, coming a bit closer to the interior, I should clean this out. That's what I should do. This is Zoe's cushion, because when she sits in the bucket seat, she's too low. Literally can't see anything. Yeah, I think you'll be able to hear that. All right, so yeah, coming over to the interior, kind of modified this a little bit as well, just make it a little bit more track day friendly. So it's running a retrimmed steering wheel, the stock steering wheel, but like a modified one, so it's got a flat bottom as well. So it just helps me get into and out of the car a little bit easier. I'm running Recaro pole positions, which were sourced by my really good friends at O'Rourke's Coat Trimmers. And then at the back, yeah, running a Cobalt back box. So it's not too loud on the motorway, which is a really crucial thing to this car. I didn't want it to be too unfriendly to use on the road on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, it's as quiet as it can be, but still have the performance. And yeah, also got the roll bar as well. So amazingly, there's a really good company, GC Fabrications, that make a roll bar that fits under the electric hardtop. So it clears it by millimeters, and it's really, really cool. Should we have a look under the bonnet? So yeah, this is where the fun is with this car. So this is running BBR's, yeah, ITBs, which are hidden under here. They make a really, really good noise. Almost sounds like a bit of an older car on carbs, which is actually part of the inspiration of it, because I mentioned that I got this car because of the experience in the MGB. Every time I get into this and start it up, that kind of grumbly sound reminds me a lot of that old car as well. Running a Deadweight Industries lightweight battery as well. That saves about, I think, 6 or 7 kilos overall versus a normal battery. And then yeah, a nice big brace to add a little bit of rigidity as well. But yeah, I love the coilovers, because yeah, you can just adjust it for the road and the track, and it literally changes the behavior of the car immediately. So yeah, it's great. So with this car as well, I also run 2 sets of wheels, one for the track and one for the road. So yeah, my road wheels are these Koenig Hypergrams 17x8, and they're running Michelin Pilot Sport 4s, which I think, or Pilot Sport in general, I think are just superb kind of all-rounder. And then my track tires kind of have a semi-slick on. But I think, yeah, they've got 8008 RS Yokohamas. They're actually more of a like harder compound, and a lot of people complain about them, but I think they're brilliant for a lightweight car because they last ages, and actually they're not too grippy. So with kind of a softer setup on the springs, having that slip allows me to feel the car a little bit more. I had Cup 2s on, which I felt like were a little bit too grippy, and I felt like the car was kind of struggling in all other departments, so kind of having a bit more playfulness in the chassis is really nice. We'll walk over to the version 6 STI Type RA. So this was a Japan-only model, and they made, originally limited to 2,000 of them. I don't even think they made that many. I think it was about 1,500 that they ended up making. But yeah, I picked this up about 2.5 years ago. It's largely standard. The only things I've done just to make it a bit more reliable, because I tend to use this quite often, dailying it as much as I can. The wheels are standard from Subaru. They're a super lightweight raise rim. And then, of course, they've got to be gold. But I think the main thing about these Type RA STIs is the little roof flap, which goes back to kind of the homologation for WRC cars, well, not WRC cars, Group A cars back in the day. So that was used by the rally car drivers to get a bit of airflow into the car, basically. It's kind of a link back to that. So the main thing about the Type RAs is they're a little bit more lightweight compared to a standard STI model. Also, this car's got, I think, 3 diffs. It's got a front, a center, and a rear. So it just helps with traction all over the place. It's got the roof scoop, lighter body. Mainly they had less options than the standard STI at the time, so less sound deadening and stuff like that. But it's also, crucially, was the first type of Impreza with what Subaru call DCCD, which is the driver controlled diff. So it allows you to send more power, or lets the diff lock less to send more power to the rear. So yeah, you can do skids in the snow or wherever you want, really. So one of the things I am thinking of changing is the front bumper. So at the time, Subaru made 22B, but for the version 6, they had an optional sport bumper, which is very similar in design to the 22B bumper. So I'm thinking of changing that over at some point. Inside, excuse the mess, it is used quite often. So yeah, it's got full of stuff. I use it a lot. It's got these special edition blue seats. And if you look on the interior, you'll see there's a little plaque inside, and the blue trims as well, which was special to this car. This is a 1996 version 2 STI Type RA. So these ones are a lot more rare to find out and about. This particular model is a V Limited model, which was a celebration car for Colin McRae and Subaru's first World Championship in the World Rally. This car is as close as you could really get to the Group A car of 1995. A very similar color, not the same color, but it's the darker blue versus the lighter blue of the newer cars. And then it also had the roof flap as well. I've added a few modifications to this just to bring a bit more of a Group A 555 rally team feel to the car. So I've got 17-inch speed lines, which I think are mandatory, and I've got some carbon fiber teardrop mirrors, which basically meant at the time that rally drivers could get as close to the surroundings as possible because it's flush with the bodywork, but they are horrible to look out of. And then yeah, there's like a little detail with the 555 here with the sticker. So that was actually on the car when I got it, and it was a real nice little Easter egg when I got in the car because I didn't really see it at the time when I was looking around. It kind of makes you feel a lot like Colin McRae when you're bombing down a B road and you've got, yeah, a nice exhaust as well. So yeah, the other thing I've done to this car is almost a straight through exhaust system, and it's a Group A replica exhaust, so it makes a very similar raspy, grumbly noise as those Group A cars. And like I mentioned, when you're bombing through like a foresty B road, you really do feel that sensation. This is really cool, actually. Got these roundels. So these early special editions, they didn't come with any kind of plaques inside the car to say that it was a special edition. All you had was these outside ones. So quite a few owners back in the day removed these plaques and lost them or misplaced them, but that means you can't actually tell which number car that one was. So thankfully I managed to get one that still had them, which is quite nice, and had to go with some L555 plates, which kind of hark back to the team cars back in the mid-90s. So this one's quite a bit different to the later car, the version 6. So completely facelifted dashboard, Nardi steering wheel, so a lot more kind of old school. It does feel really different in there. And then there's another really cool detail is stitching on the seats have Colin McRae's signature in the driver's side and Derek Ringer's signatures on the passenger side. So again, just kind of bringing it all together as a celebration of the 1995 championship. And then that brings us onto the Lotus Exige, which for me, kind of as pure a driving experience as you can get with a roof on. But yeah, you know, when you're not going as far as a Caterham, I absolutely love these cars because they're super lightweight. I think this one's about 900 kilos. It's got the Toyota 2ZZ naturally aspirated engine. So it's about 190 horsepower. I think there's been a few modifications to this car, like the carbon airbox and a few other, and the exhaust. So it's probably closer to 200, but that is bang on the money of what I believe makes a really nice balanced sports car, is that 200 horsepower per ton. In terms of the steering, when you're on the road, this thing just handles like a dream. And then the grip is just outstanding. At the moment, I've set it up to be more track biased because the MX5 kind of does more of the road stuff. So I said, I might just go a little bit more hardcore with the Lotus, which is great because on track, it really comes to life and the grip is just amazing. And it really can keep up with a lot of stuff in the corners. But once it comes to the straights, it probably needs a bit more power. So maybe a supercharger is coming along, I'm not sure. But in terms of feeling and cornering, for me, this just really ticks all the boxes. So yeah, this is also a really early Exige. So this is 2004. It was built within the first couple of months of the Exige Series 2 being launched. So yeah, it is a naturally aspirated engine. In that regard, I feel like there is a bit of a different feeling with this, because like the MX5, I felt like I learned to drive a lot with that car because it didn't actually have too much power and you had to really learn to carry the speed through a corner. And I felt like, yeah, that this was a logical step up, that it just had even more grip through the corner. But again, not too much power where I felt like the car was just making up for my mistakes. So I really feel like this has helped me become a better driver. So the interior of this, yeah, it's pretty barren in there. There's not much going on, and that's part of the reason I absolutely love this car. So I actually had to remove, there's a center kind of cover that goes over the gear shift. I haven't removed that for aesthetics only. It does look cool, but I'm not exactly tall, but I couldn't actually get close enough to the pedals. So I had to remove that to get another notch or two on the seat to get a little bit closer to the pedals. So I think the main thing with a lot of the modifications on my cars is that they all have to be quite functional. And that's the basis of having them, is that they all get used, and that's the most important thing. Yeah, everything has a reason. I hope you've really enjoyed taking a closer look at some of my collection. Each one of them kind of gives a really different experience, but they're all sharing the same foundation of kind of more of a raw feeling. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that.